As you might have read in different places, the Kicklighter family is from the region of Heidenheim in Württemberg. And Heidenheim, this is an old rendition of part of Heidenheim, showing the way things were. There was a ruling family that had all the acreage, and then there were little villages, and these little villages were where all the serfs or peasants lived that worked the farms and raised everything, and then they paid the ruling family. And the Kicklighters were not part of the ruling family. They were part of the other one. This will give you just an idea about where the Kicklighters came. The immigrant, Thomas Kicklighter, when he came to America, he came from this area just east of Stuttgart, in that red star. And there are three, within that area, there are two really important villages, and then one that's not so important. But the one you may have heard most of is Sernstetten. Sernstetten is where Thomas immigrated from. But the Kicklighter family, before that, were really from a little farming village called Heldenfingen. And I put this up. Mom, yes. You need to listen. I put this one up for you. This little star down here is Aegis, Switzerland. It's where the Dasher family came to America from. They were part of the Salzburgers. Here's Salzburg, but it's only 200 miles from where the Kicklighters came to this country from. But they came about 20 years earlier. That was for you. My mother also introduced me to Gottfried and Ulrike Kicklighter that she met on Facebook. So she met these on Facebook, introduced them to me. I had some discussion with them. I ended up going to visit them. And the Kicklighter name, as they spell it today, is spelled this way, but it's pronounced Kicklighter. Maybe Kicklighter, but it's pronounced basically the same. This is where they live, just outside of Frankfurt. You can see some of the city in the background. This is their son Mark wearing a Braves baseball jersey. I took him because they had given my son Patrick a Stuttgart soccer shirt. There's a famous Kicklighter that plays Stuttgart football or soccer there, and gave my son one of these shirts. So when I went to visit them, I took them an Atlanta Braves shirt with the proper spelling. So from here forward, they know how to spell it. But both these guys were born in 1993. When I got there, this is Gottfried, and he immediately, they took me in, prepared me some Schweinsteak or something, and immediately started opening books and just telling me all these things. We'd already corresponded for weeks, so we knew each other. But this is Gottfried. He was born in 1955. That's his son who wore the Atlanta Braves shirt. His father, Friedrich, was born in 1907, and he was in the German army. He was a Nazi, and his father, Johannes, was in World War I. So World War I, World War II, they both survived the war, but a lot of others did not. I told you that Heldenfingen was a real important part of Kicklighter heritage. It's where the Austrian ancestor Wolfgang Kicklighter came from. When he came from Austria right after the 30 Years' War, he settled in this little farming village, and it's not known whether he was recruited to resettle the area, or if there was overcrowding where he was, or if there was religious persecution, but probably one or maybe more of these reasons. He moved to this farming village called Heldenfingen. And Heldenfingen, it's a quiet little place. I walked around, I took some pictures, and there was nothing. Just no, there's one little child riding a bicycle. You go around there, it's just kind of a dead town. But then it was just before a festival, so they had the music leader with a band from the local church, and on Sunday when I went to church with them, the same band was there playing. But they had a big parade. It was some kind of special festival where all the children decorated themselves like either a flower or a plant or an animal. So all the kids decorated themselves and marched around the whole village in Heldenfingen. This is another picture. This is the church that I went to look at records of Kicklighters, and these were before. These were 3 generations before the Thomas that came to America. So this was his ancestors were in this church, and their records are there. This is inside the church, and again that same picture. I just wanted to show this. This is the church here, and in this house is where the Kellers live. The Keller is the chief of police. I thought you might like to hear that. In Heldenfingen, and his wife is Anya Kicklighter, who I'll show you. And Lita, Anya is Frank's sister, the other Frank Kicklighter. That's
okay.
his sister. So they
Thank you.
are some of the remaining ones there. All around this little farming village that I showed you, the buildings and where people live, there's animals everywhere. So there's flies everywhere. Because the animals live right in town with the people. This was next to the hotel. This is old Ricky. Old Ricky, and they adopted Alexander from this place because his parents were drug addicts. And so they adopted this little boy, so he was with us the whole time and just having a good time. But this was literally 30 feet from the hotel I stayed at. So in there, flies everywhere.
How funny.
These are a couple of Kicklighters.
They're kicking Kicklighters.
Yeah.
I've seen some that fit that.
This is down in the south of Germany. As you get closer to the Alps, it gets colder. So there's a lot of snow here. It really snows up in the winter. And they got these big, the picture doesn't show you, these things are huge. And they pull them down they have a forklift on a tractor to get these things down, but this is what the horses pull. That's how they move the feed and everything around during the winter. Now, this is the Kicklighter house in Heldenfingen that dates from the 1700s. And I believe this is Martin Kicklighter and down to Gottfried's grandfather, Johannes. But this is the old house there that's still there. And in the book of fiefs of this village, Heldenfingen, in the records, there lists Wolfgang Kicklighter, and on the map they have where he first lived, and he had, half of a Jochert to farm, which was about 4/10 of an acre or something like that, and he was required each year to pay to the monastery at Anhausen, which they were required. These are lands that had to pay a church tithe too. So he had to pay so much corn, a fat hen for different ceremonies, chickens, all this kind of stuff he had to give. But this is on the site, but it's a different house. Now this is the house today, and Gottfried and Ulrike took me to see this, and they were horrified that the current tenants were hanging their laundry on the fence out front for me to see and take a picture of. And I did a side-by-side so you can see it. There's the old picture, and that's the way it looks today. But that's Kicklighter house. Inside the house, on the stairwell, there's the molding on the stairwell from me and my new friend. And if you look up close, this stairwell was built, and it was hand-cut molding by M.G., that's Martin Kicklighter, in 1834. He added that. So that was inside, and something that Gottfried was very proud of. This is Gottfried's sister, Ursula, and they said we look just alike. So I included that. Here we are again, me, Ursula, and Gottfried, out in front of Kicklighter house. Inside this is now in Gottfried's house, but it's a Trosten. They call them little plaques that the Germans make to commemorate something important like a baptism or something like this. But this is the one for Martin Kicklighter. It says Berger and Marmeiler. He was a citizen and a master mason in this city, born 1798, died 1871. And that's to commemorate his life, and it's something that they do. This is the hotel I stayed at called the Golden Ox. It was built in, it existed, it was built in 1709, so it existed at the time our immigrant ancestor Thomas was living. And here's the little Knox, and there's Alexander. And this was crazy because they only spoke German and I don't. And their son would translate, but he wasn't very good. So we had this, they invited a bunch of Kicklighters to have a reunion, and it was very special. They were so nice to me. They brought me all kinds of photographs and things, and they drank beer all the time. I mean, that's all they did the whole time. But one of the interesting things, these are two Kicklighters that have married, so their surname has changed, but they're Kicklighters. And this one, she told me that she had a half brother who was part of the German Luftwaffe in the war, and he was killed, and that he was very big into genealogy, and he was much older because there was a later marriage, but he was a half brother, much older than her, in the Second World War that died, and that he had a pedigree of the Kicklighter family dating back to 1300. And she said that before Austria, the family came from Yugoslavia. That's what she told me. And it's lore of the family, and it's lore. It's not proof. It's something she said. They were showing me pictures. This is Gottfried's grandfather, Johannes. And that's his father, Friedrich. And the rest of their family. And this is them a little bit earlier when he was in his World War I garb. Children younger, obviously. That's his uncle, Ursula, and this one married a Kicklighter that was also killed in the war. And she came and she brought many, many more pictures of the family. So they were looking at all these pictures and speaking German. This is one that I like. This is Gottfried's uncle Hans, who was a butcher in Stuttgart. And this is his butcher shop, and some of their family, and probably people that work there. This is another brother who was a blacksmith that lived in Hamburg. Okay, and here we are back out by the hotel, and Gottfried, and this is Ursula's son, and this is Anya. Anya is Gottfried's niece and sister to the other Frank Kicklighter of the world. This is their boys. Well, this is Alexander, so he's not a Kicklighter, but these three are Anya's sons. And we went on this ride around the countryside. They took us out on horse-drawn carriage, and we toured around edges of Black Forest and had a little ride. The boys were up front having their fun. And this is, they were toying with me. They couldn't understand me and thought I was a novelty. And so they were constantly doing that. And this is when we arrived back. Now, this little town has less importance, Sondheim. It's an interesting place. It's where the first Kicklighter left Heldenfingen, and it was our line. He left Heldenfingen, moved here for whatever reason. But again, this is the same kind of layout. It's a little village in the middle of all the land that's farmed, but everybody has to live in the same spot for some reason. So the little village was there. And an interesting thing about this place is I'm up on a ridge here taking a picture, and the ridge goes all the way around, and it's really a world-renowned and widely studied impact crater. That's where a meteorite hit years ago. I don't know how many, but a lot of years ago. That's why it's a little... So this is when we arrived there. This is Walter Starsman. He's a retired vicar of the church in Sernstedt, and he was our guide, and I paid him for some work that he did. And we went to a festival they were having, and this is the mayor. It's guy's the mayor of Sondheim, which is kind of like a county seat. So we had this meeting. Now, Cernstetten is what you maybe read about in the Earl Kicklighter book. There's a bit of information. Little town you might recognize the church. This is where our ancestor Thomas left, and this is the way it looks. It's very picturesque around. This road is Highway 446 that runs through here. This road was built, according to the guide, this was built by Romans, and Cernstetten was right in the middle of two big castles that the Romans had, and he told me that that's why it was such a big place that saw a lot of warfare, because that's where the troops always moved through. And this, he said, was in a lot of the old village houses. This is of the same era of our Thomas. It's a loom room where the linen weavers worked. And Thomas was a linen weaver. And it had to be up under the bottom. It had to be a very damp place, he said, so the flax would not become brittle when they spun it. So this is where they worked. This is what he told me. Here again is the church. Now, Thomas Kicklighter and his family attended this church. It's a Protestant church, St. Martin's, and this is not of the era of Thomas. It was built in 1856 because the church was destroyed maybe twice. This building is from the 1600s and dates back to when Thomas was there. But this church was placed perpendicular from the way the other one faced, he said. The original one they had, the plat was showing it faced this direction. And Thomas and his wife had 10 children, and only 3 came to America with him. So the other ones that died, he said, were buried all around this church. And in the back there used to be a cemetery that was built over, but the custom was just to bury them around the church. And you can go looking for grave markers like we have out here. You can go over there and look all you want, but they're not there, because they recycle their graves maybe every 1 to 125 years. They're recycled. So then there's a new marker there, but there may be 5 or 6 people stacked in these things. This is just a shot inside the church. Okay, this is the building I told you that dates from Thomas's era. And up in the little top here, they have archives. And these are some of the few records that he said survived the 30 Years' War. Because the 30 Years' War was 1618 to 1648. And everything was just laid waste. The church was burned, everything. But for some reason, this survived. These are some of the records. These are the records that are in the house beside the church. These are the ones that survived the 30 Years' War. Like this one, the Toffin. This is baptisms that date from 1611. Information from the parish of Cernstetten. So all of these they've labeled, and these are the original records that we went through. And everything is written this way. They're in ink, they're in German, old German, cursive, and very difficult to look at. Now I took this picture. This is the marriage of Thomas Kicklighter to Anna Maria Walliser. Thomas Kicklighter, son of Hans Jacob Kicklighter. This is Married into Prayers or something like that. Anna Maria, daughter of Martin Walliser, Married into Prayers. And they were married on Halloween. 31st of October, in 1736 they were married. Now, this over here was really interesting, and the vicar explained it to me. He said, Frere Beischlaffer, the way this is written means early bedfellow. The direct translation is early bedfellow. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, it means they were early bedfellows. Because they were married October 31st of 1736. And their daughter, Catherine, that came to America with them, was born 16 days later. So she was 9 months pregnant when they married, and he said it was fairly common. Because here's another one right below it. The next one that was tallied in November is right under it. So he said it was fairly common, and one of the customs was that they had a service that was outside of the norm. It wasn't whatever the norm was. If it was, Saturday morning or whatever, this one would be, Tuesday afternoon or some other time. Now, this is a record of John Frederick's birth, which was 24th September of 1743, and listed the parents' name, Thomas Kicklighter, the wife, Anna Maria. And this is, for those that are really into genealogy and have been looking at the family for a long time, this was one of the stumbling blocks, because the earliest records, Russell, I'm sure you'll know this, the earliest records of the Wartenberg Index that was produced, giving all the names that came to America, we were never in it, because they listed the name as Thomas Bickler with a B. His name was Thomas Bickler, and nobody ever got it. But this little equal sign means continued, and that's a G, and it's Kicklighter. Now, there's something interesting on this one, too, because you can see that this writing is different right here, and the ink's different, and the handwriting is different. So I asked him about this, and he said, oh, this means in the translation that he left with his parents in 1752 to the English island of Carolina.
Wow. That's cool.
I guess they thought it was an island. But he said that is the direct translation. And he said maybe it was added later because after they left, the priest went back in and made notes, or it could have been from a researcher, a Kicklighter researcher, sometime along the way. But that's really all I have. Thanks, and I'll